We experience objects in the world through their exterior, which is why opening them up can provide an inside look at their inner workings. Cutting most things open reveals interesting results of what's inside. But we will show you 20 more objects that look really curious when cut in half. Number 20. Centurian Tank. The Centurian Tank was the primary tank in the British arsenal in the post-war period, first introduced in 1945. They were so successful that they remained in production until the 1960s and were actually used on front lines until the 1980s. And after that, tank used in the Gulf War to clear landmines took their design from the Centurion's chassis, which was notoriously landmine-proof. Here we have the pleasure of seeing one cut in half, exposing its massive Rolls-Royce Meteor 27-liter engine at the back, its turret cannon, and a crew member who luckily isn't cut in half. It looks small in there though, doesn't it? 4 people were squeezed inside, a gunner, commander, loader, and a driver, and the Centurion isn't even considered a small tank at all. It'd be quite comfortable when compared to a Sherman. It had reached unimaginable temperatures in there during combat, and would probably be quite smelly too. Number 19. Java Sandcrawler. The Sandcrawler is one of the most memorable Star Wars vehicles due to its massive size and imposing industrial form. The depth and detail of the imagination, which goes into some of these creations, is truly magnificent to behold. And this exploded diagram shows the detail inside such a craft. A Sandcrawler's purpose is to venture deep into Tatooine's desert interior, in search of loops and prizes, which the Javas can sell for profit back in Mos Eisley or other cities. From the maintenance passage to the transfer crane, this cross-sectional diagram from the 1998 book, Star Wars Incredible Cross-Sections, shows it all. Number 18. Hammer Drill. Hammer drills are powerful. They enable us to drill through the hardest of materials like brick and mortar with ease, and they're easily held by hand. How are they so powerful? Well, they're packed with a big old electric motor. That's how. You can see here how large that motor is in the middle of the chassis. It fills the entire thing. If you compared this to a motor in, say, an RC car, you find it to be much fatter, with much more power and tons of torque. Enough to rotate a drill bit with enough stability and force to penetrate hard surfaces. Number 17. Ant Colony. Ants are some of the most advanced creatures on Earth, and the complexity of their colonies visually proves it. They have many chambers designated to different tasks. Some chambers are dedicated to egg catching, and then there's separate ones for nursing young ants. There's a trash room where rubbish is taken, either scrap food or insect carcasses. And then there's a room where ants actually farm aphids for feeding the colony, and even one for storing seeds or mushrooms. At the bottom of the colony, you'll find the centerpiece of the entire colony, the queen ant in her individual egg-laying room. She'll lay 2,500 eggs a day, and colonies also have designated zones for their flying ants and are always digging new rooms. The complexity of fully fledged large ant colony is astounding. It's almost hard to believe how intricate some ant colonies are. But recent research has confirmed their ability to cooperate on advanced tasks, so much so that some species even cultivate their own fungi within the depths of the colony. Number 16. Silencer. Silencers are often depicted in movies as hushing a gun almost completely into a low thud or high-pitched whisper. In reality, they aren't quite as effective as that, but do reduce noise by 20 to 30%. Including many of the higher-pitched and damaging frequencies which travel the furthest, silencers aren't just for assassins and stealth. Therefore, reducing gun noise to a safe level so hearing protection isn't required, and also reduce recoil and muzzle flash too. So how do they work? The inside of a silencer features many chambers which reflect the noise and absorb it so it doesn't escape. Between them, they disperse the sound waves efficiently enough to reduce sound significantly, in turn, reducing the shockwave produced by the gun and its flash. Number 15. Airsoft Gun. Many kids will have owned a BB gun at some point in their lives, and when you grow up, you realize that automatic airsoft guns really are serious pieces of kit, not toys. With a powerful motor powering its complex set of gears, they're capable of launching a pellet at 350 feet per second and can have a rate of fire up to 1,000 pellets a minute. This cross-section exposes the magazine reservoir, which you wind up to force the pellets into the firing chamber. Number 14. Rubik's Cube. Some of us can do them, but most of us can't, or maybe most of us can. but just don't have the patience to persist with completing one. Either way, the cross-section doesn't make them look any simpler. They still look every bit as confuzzing. Number 13. Bonsai Roots. Bonsai trees are miniaturized trees that feature heavily in Chinese and Japanese culture as a form of ornament. Their purpose is for a contemplation over their beauty and the pleasure of growing them, and they're certainly very cool. Here, you could see how pot-bound the bonsai has become over time. Its roots are densely packed, and this is evidence of poor upkeep of the tree. When the roots get this dense, you should trim them and repot the tree. Number 12. Cuttle Fish. Cuttle fish are incredibly curious creatures of the deepest they are, but take their cross-section, and they look like creatures for outer space. They're incredibly advanced with color-changing pigments in their skin, which help them adapt to their environments, and ink-emitting glands, which fire off when a predator's nearby. Not something that you want to catch underwater when you are off guard. Number 11. Airbus Engine. Planes are one of the biggest triumphs of modern engineering. Flying at 30,000 feet at 700 miles per hour in a several hundred-ton aircraft terrifies many of us. But the fact remains that flying is one of the safest forms of transport, and that's testament to the extremely intense and rigorous tests that every component goes through before flight. Looking at this engine cross-section, we can see the sheer and outrageous complexity of these things. There are thousands upon thousands of parts that all work in complete synchrony and very, very rarely go wrong. Number 10. Bloodwood Tree. This tree looks like it's been in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It gives the term tree surgery a far more literal meaning. Tree beard is that you. Most trees yield tree sap, but some yield a much thicker, gummier substance called kino. Kino has a distinctive deep red color, and since some species of tree tend to ooze large amounts of it from their wounds, kino has been nicknamed with the likes of red gum and bloodwood. Number 9. Sectarian Nodule. There are many different rocks and minerals on Earth, and their composites form so many hundreds of thousands of spectacular rocky forms. But some are particularly intriguing, and this one looks like it's come straight out of a sci-fi game or movie. It's a sectarian nodule, which is derived from the Latin septum meaning partition, which describes its distinct interior and exterior. These stones are part of a class of stone called concretions, and though the word looks like concrete, they're far more interesting. They're actually formed when minerals are deposited around an inner core of differing composition. The sediment is deposited around the rock's nucleus, and the resulting rock often doesn't resemble other rocks surrounding it, leading people to think they're fossilized eggs, alien artifacts, or other weird structures. Number 8. Snail. Looking at the outside of a snail, you wouldn't believe that it has many of the same organs that we have, but it does, including kidneys, a stomach, a heart, lung, and a liver. Despite their apparent squishiness, snails have evolved over 350 million years and existed exclusively in the sea for a long time before then and are actually extremely advanced, hardy creatures. They pack many complex features into their slimy hide and have a relatively advanced perception of the world. They can live for 25 years and have 14,000 teeth. Big snails can reach 30 centimeters in length, and with that many teeth, we're glad they don't get any bigger than that. Number 7. Mechanical calculator. Old mechanical calculators are pretty mind-blowing. They automated simpler calculations like addition, subtraction, and basic multiplication and division, and did so with absolutely no digital components whatsoever. Just a tremendous labyrinth of gears, levers, and mechanically operated sequences. We take calculators for granted, but they've enabled us to all but eliminate the chance of human error in calculating equations in sums. The big question is, how on earth do you go about engineering one of these? It's a real brain ache to imagine the painstaking process of assembling one of these, and when you consider the first prototypes were made in the early 1600s, it's a bit of a head twister. Basically though, through complex mechanical sequences, engineers converted calculations into inputs and outputs, which meant the machine would react to what you input into it, eventually giving you a calculated figure. Number 6. Concert Hall. The Elfie Concert Hall is an absolute behemoth of a building packed with state-of-the-art facilities, huge hallways and atriums, a hotel, 3 concert halls, and many hundreds of rooms. The footprint of the building measures a mighty 120,000 square feet, and there's 26 massive floors rising 100 meters high. It's no wonder then that the Hull cost a lot of money and took 9 years to be completed after a series of rather embarrassing and controversial budget rises and delays. It was completed on 31st of October, 2016 at a cost of £789 million, more than 3 times the original budget. Was it worth it? If you go there, you probably say yes. It truly is a superstructure worth the wait. Number 5. Coconut. Coconuts are nutritious and delicious, a staple food of many island cultures. But they aren't actually nuts at all, but drupes, a type of stone. Other drupes include mangoes, apricots, and olives, and they're designed so an animal eats them, and then excretes the stone somewhere else, which can grow into a new plant. A coconut, though, is unique in that no animal in their right mind would try and eat it whole. The exterior is tough and fibrous, not soft and juicy. Instead, coconuts can float and travel many miles to new shores where they can eventually germinate into new trees. Number 4. Space debris hitting spacecraft. And this is a cross-section of a lab simulation that was testing what happens when space debris hits the exterior of a spacecraft. The block of aluminium is 18 centimeters thick, and the sphere also aluminium is 1.2 centimeters thick. The sphere was accelerated to a speed of 6.8 kilometers per second, roughly the speed of orbiting space debris. Such speeds are difficult to comprehend, but the impact would have created energy and pressure levels similar to that experienced at the center of the Earth. As you can see, despite significant damage, the sheet remarkably survived the impact with a crater depth of 5.3 centimeters, which is no doubt a good sign. Number 3. Bowling pin. This wooden bowling pin's cross-section reveals that it's not made out of solid wood, but instead has hollow parts to its body. Pin manufacturers play around with the ball's composition, so it behaves more dramatically when struck by a bowling ball. It wouldn't be so exciting if the pin just dropped dead to the floor. We want to see the pins ping about when we hit a sweet strike. Number 2. Bullet in a tree. This is a cool image of a cross-section of a tree, which reveals a Hulk cross-section of a bullet embedded in its trunk. It raises a few questions, and skeptics have questioned the legitimacy of the original image. How did the bullet get there? How come the bullet isn't squashed or deformed? How is the bullet cut in half perfectly? Well, perhaps the bullet went astray during some shooting practice. It does look like a handgun bullet and has a metal jacket, which combined with the tree's shock-absorbing qualities means the bullet is kept intact despite traveling 5 inches into the wood. Chainsaws are made from the strongest tempered steel and bullets are made from softer alloys. Perhaps lead in this case, so it makes sense that a quality chainsaw would go right through this bullet without issue. Either way, it's a cool example of how a tree absorbs shock sufficiently for the bullet to have a narrow pathway into it sinking intact into the tree without causing too much more damage. Before I reveal the most amazing cross-section, I'd like to remind you to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, we upload amazing fact-filled list videos daily. Also, make sure to click that bell icon to stay updated, or you'll regret missing out on some amazing knowledge that could have filled your brain. Now let's get back to it. Number 1. Underwater cable. This wire is huge. The biggest creatures live in the sea, and this behemoth is no different. There are thousands of miles of these under the sea, powering offshore oil rigs, wind farms, and solar farms, and of many historic cables lay dormant in our ocean from early transatlantic telephone lines. This particular cable is a 3-phase power cable and wind and solar power transported through it with a mighty 1,400 megawatt capacity, connecting the electricity networks between Germany and Norway. It costs $2 billion for the entire reel, and it is heavily armored with many inches of hard rubber and dense steel wire protection around the outside. They will easily survive the most brutal submarine conditions for 30 years or more without any wear. In fact, some undersea cables used in early telecommunication have been around for 100 years and are still operational. The inner world of objects and creatures are certainly great sights to behold. Which cross-section did you think was the best? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe, clicking that bell to stay notified. Thanks for watching.